Hey, it's Jamie with Running Restaurants. I've got a great snippet for you from a recent in-depth webinar we did called The Top 8 Restaurant Mistakes and How to Fix Them. In this clip, Roger Beaudoin of Restaurant Rockstars covers one of the mistakes. Here you go. Good. All right. Mistake number 3, being a manager, right? And I know we had, whether it was you or elsewhere on the site, we talked about management versus leadership and the difference between the two. And it's wordplay sometimes, but it's a mental mindset more than anything else.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yes, this is probably the biggest paradigm shift in the industry and really in any industry, because manager and management is such a common overused word that's been around forever. But when I think of that word, it implies the boss. Okay. And before the pandemic, the boss could get away with a whole lot of necessarily bad behavior. And what I mean by bad behavior is not doing anything illegal. It's literally barking orders and telling people how to do things. And that's called delegating. Okay. So those two words, manager, management, and delegating, are overused. And I'm sort of on a one person mission to change all that, because I believe in true leadership. Okay. Just because somebody holds that title of manager does not mean that they're experienced, doesn't mean that they're competent to lead, doesn't mean that they can inspire and motivate others to top performance. Maybe you promoted somebody recently to manager, but are they leaders, or are they sort of, holding the title of boss? And we're going to get into some detail. So leadership is really the new way forward. A leader leads by example. A leader is not someone who barks orders and criticizes people for bad or negative behaviors or performance. Um, Empowerment is a really powerful word. So it starts with an empowered leader that grows your brand and your business, and then develops other leaders below that person, and is always looking to recognize talent and move people up in the organization and give them new responsibilities. And training is a key element of that. But how powerful is that? If you have so many people that keep growing in your business, they'll never want to leave if they keep getting new opportunities, especially if they get incentives for doing so, and even more money and all that kind of stuff. But it's really about the pride in taking on something new, learning new skills. And let's face it, the skills that you learn in the restaurant business can take you anywhere in the world without a formal education. So, recognizing talent, empowering your people. I love the word entrepreneur. Now, not everyone's heard that word. We've all heard the word entrepreneur. Everyone knows that an entrepreneur takes the risk of starting a business with the hopes of making a profit and putting all the pieces in place and taking all that risk. Everything from, creating that business, what that business plan means, getting it funded, putting all the people in place and the resources, and then the cost of goods and the lease on the property and the costs and the expenses go on and on. And this is a low margin business, and no one would argue that point. I would argue that I can increase your profit significantly by virtue of a lot of things and a lot of the systems I'm going to talk about, but let's not get off track. An entrepreneur is someone who has all the same skill sets and vision for your business, but literally doesn't own the business, just feels empowered and recognized and is rewarded and incentivized for building your business for you. And if you have multiple entrepreneurs within your business, that is a very powerful thing. That is a competitive advantage. And I was fortunate to have that in my restaurants. I empowered people to build my business, and I incentivized them to do so. And they did some pretty remarkable things.
Roger, I have an article somewhere on our site that goes back 15 to 20 years. Goes way back, but it's as applicable then as it would be now. And it talks about a server in a restaurant who did exactly what you're talking about, treated it like a business, an entrepreneur, right? The restaurant owner did the other stuff, built the building, fund the thing, buy the food, etc. But the waiter, the server has a little business inside of that. Okay. And they had a book of business. She took notes on her clients. People would ask for her. And lo and behold, you had a 6-figure server. And this is, again, 15, 20 years ago. That kind of money as a server is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
At any point in time. But they only did that because they had the mentality of, I'm building a business inside of a business. And if you can instill that instinct or that fabric in your folks of, hey, listen, I took the risk to build all this stuff, but I'm giving you a business in a box, to the wait staff, et cetera, and to some extent the catering manager, et cetera. You have all the tools to build your own thing, and you really can go to the moon with that. So I want to just put that out there and let it sit. And I looked ahead one slide. So you're absolutely right. Look what we have coming up here. Set clear expectations with accountability. So here's where we peeked in a second ago. And let's get a little bit further now. And I know I've talked with you in previous interviews about how you sit down with the folks when you hire them, how you sit down when it's time to do a review or a warning.
Mhm.
Is that kind of where you're going to go now?
Absolutely. I think the next slide might set that out. Yeah, here we go. So again, setting the bar, and I think you said it best, Jane, because when you hire a new person, um, a new employee, regardless of the position, a lot of people just sort of turn them loose, especially if they've worked in restaurants before. But I'm a huge believer in mentoring and shadowing and in daily training. And there's so many benefits to that. And I know we've talked about this in past shows, but I've run into a lot of operators that look at everything as a cost or an expense versus an investment. And the story I want to tell is I cross trained people constantly, and my leaders cross trained people constantly so that people, one, had more exciting jobs, they learned new skills, but it was such a backup plan or a plan B when somebody got the flu or something unexpected happened. And suddenly I could call somebody else that was trained to do someone else's job, even though that was not their primary position. And we even had sort of a rotating schedule on people's days off. If you're just doing the laundry or watching TV, and if you'd like to make some more money, I'll make it worth your while to come in a pinch. And people were kind of on call in case the unexpected happened. So we were never short staffed that way. And that is sort of a key solution to some of the challenges that are happening. But I digress and I don't want to get off track. So let's talk about job descriptions. I ask so many restaurants, do you have really accurate job descriptions for every position in your restaurant or your hospitality business? And the answer I hear most often is, yeah, a long time ago, maybe, but we don't have anything current. And there is the foundation of the expectations. Okay. So I'm going to describe what a very powerful, very effective job description is. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat this and say it doesn't take homework because, yes, any system that you put in place in your business takes a little bit of work up front, but then it becomes a system and then the work isn't required anymore. It's there. Okay. And that's a training tool for future leaders. There's the system. All right, so job description. My job description has three key components to it. At the very top, it's what I call key success factors. And it doesn't matter what the job is, it's a series of words, 5 or 6 words, or maybe even a phrase or two or three and a couple of words. But when you think about a particular job, maybe it's a fry cook, maybe it's a dishwasher, line cook, server, bartender, whatever it is, think about each of these positions one at a time. What do you expect? There's that word expectations that that person will bring to the job every single day in order to make them successful. And I can throw out a bunch of words that are applicable. And sometimes there's overlap between different jobs. But how about detail oriented, eyes wide open, hustle, accurate cash handling, careful with expensive items, safety minded? It just goes on and on. But every job is different. So start there. Come up with 6 or 7 words or a couple of phrases about what you want that person to bring to the job and to remember and to practice every single day. The main body of a job description has primary responsibilities. Every job has a different set of primary responsibilities. Okay, it might be 5 items, it might be 10, 15 or more. It doesn't matter. Every job is different. But the accuracy is important because here's where the expectations are set. So let's just say there are 5 primary responsibilities for a dishwasher. I want you to create every one of these job descriptions and think about every responsibility as if you did it yourself with the highest level of accomplishment and pride. Set the bar. What is the expectation with this responsibility and with this one and with this one, and so on and so forth? The key to accountability is having a blank line next to each primary responsibility in each job. When you sit down with a new hire, or if you have existing people that have been working with you for a while and you want to put the job descriptions in place, and I totally recommend you do this. You sit down with these people one-on-one once you've crafted the job description, and you go down line by line. They have a copy in their hand, you've got a copy, and you read it very, very slowly and accurately. And when you're finished reading that line item, you ask the person, do you understand what our expectations are for you to do this job? And two, can you do these things to the best of your ability every shift? And we're going to be watching. Okay. This is the accountability piece. Now, sometimes there's training involved here. If you got a new person that's got really great attributes, great personality, hardworking person, but they've never worked in a restaurant, yes, there's some training. But this assumes after the person has been trained, can you do it every day to the best of your ability? If they say yes to both of those questions, you have them initial that line. Then you go on to the next one and the next one. So now suddenly you've got a job description with 5 or 10 or 15 initials of each person in each job. And there's your accountability. Suddenly, when things go sideways, because you know what your expectations are, you set the bar. When you see things deviating from the performance that person said that they could and were willing to do, that's when you pull them aside and you simply say, and this is not a criticism. This isn't the boss barking orders saying, get out there and do it right. It's, here's your job description. You said that you could do this a certain way to the best of your ability, and I'm just not seeing that. And then you put the ball in their court and you say, what can you do to get back on track so that the performance is where the bar was set and that we can mutually agree that you're doing things to the best of your ability? And then you wait for the answer. And now that person is sort of on the spot and they have to tell you how they're going to correct their behavior. And again, this is not a criticism, it's a critique. And when they tell you, I'm going to do X, you'll say, thank you very much. Please go out and do X. And now they know as soon as they walk out of the office, they suddenly have to change and correct that behavior because they know you're going to be watching and they don't want to be called on the carpet and called into your office again. And that is the most powerful thing I learned almost in 30 years in this business. Okay, there's the accountability. Disciplinary action also needs to happen. But before I go there, let's talk about the third piece of the job description. The discipline kind of rolls into that job description thing, but I'll get to that. The third piece is you always want to be looking and seeing talent in others and giving them opportunities to move up. I mentioned that earlier. And you want to incentivize people to become an entrepreneur, take on more responsibility, grow and build your business. And there needs to be a certain incentive if they accomplish that. Now, it's okay if someone is a 5-star dishwasher or fry cook and they've been working at that for years and they love that job and they don't want to move on to anything else. That's perfectly okay. But most people would want to kind of move up sometimes and be cross-trained and learn different things. Okay. So that's the third part, the incentives for this is where this job can take you. And over a period of time, if you show me that you can accomplish your primary responsibilities and do a great job with it, then here's where you can go. And when the time is right, we can move you up in the organization, and there'll be obviously an incentive for that. So that's the disciplinary act. No, I'm sorry, that's the job description. Let's talk about discipline real quick. There are minor infractions and there are major infractions, and there needs to be consequences. Let's talk about the minor ones. If someone, was 10 minutes late one day, but they've always had great performance, that does not require a write-up of any kind. Okay, you let that kind of slide. There's certain things that you let go because overall, this person takes pride in what they do and that they're responsible. But when it becomes a habit, that's when it becomes a write-up. Now, here's the key point I want to make. Every single restaurant needs a disciplinary or an employee file because it's not always just about discipline. It's about the things they do great. Recognizing people that do amazing things also is really important. So let's talk about minor infractions and a write-up. There's a consequence if it's a repeated behavior. And whatever that consequence is, you need to decide because every restaurant is different. Maybe they lose a shift. Maybe they lose an employee meal if that's a benefit. Maybe, they're not eligible for a recognition and rewards program that I've been really successful doing. Major infractions are something altogether. This is chronic tardiness, chronic calling in sick. This is creating hazardous situations. This is insubordination. This is bullying. This is harassment. This is drugs and alcohol use on property. These are the major things. And some are immediate cause for termination, and some are just write-ups that need to correct the behavior with consequences. So all of this is a template in the academy that I'll tell you about later, but that's disciplinary action. And then finally, this is a very long slide, but performance reviews are absolutely essential because people want to know how they're performing. I recommend every 6 months, every person gets a performance review. But I talked about the system being, once it's in place, it's a template. So a performance review is simply taking the job description that you already created and the employee file that I told you that you absolutely must have, whether it's in an old school file cabinet in the corner, it's in the cloud, or it's digital on your computer, doesn't matter. But you need to take copious notes throughout your day. As a leader, it's very important that you recognize the things your people do great and recognize them and give them a pat on the back for that. And then the things that go sideways, when I said you need to take corrective action, make note of those things. And this gives you the ammunition and the information for the performance review. So you take the job description, say for your fry cook, and then you go down the line, and then through your notes and through what you know about that person's performance, you, in glowing descriptive detail, whether it's positive or there's some negative things in there, as accurately as possible, every single line item of those responsibilities, you need to tell that person how well they did meeting those expectations. And then you grade every single line item. Is it an A? Is it a B? Is it a C? Or even possibly a D? And then they get an overall grade. A sort of an average of all those things. If there's 10 things on the list and most of them are A's and a couple of B's, then obviously they got an A- at the top. And then you sit down, you give them an overall, I really love having you here. You really take initiative. You take pride in what you do. You're quality minded. You're safety minded. You make friends with the guests. Please keep doing what you're doing. And by the way, you've earned the opportunity to move up into the next level of our organization. So that's the performance review. So yes, all these things take homework up front, but once it's a system, it's there. And this is where you get the accountability. This is how you build your dream team and the people that will stay with you for long periods of time versus just, oh, the grass is greener. Let's go on to the competition because maybe they're going to pay me $1 or $2 more. It's part of that culture and definitely the expectation thing that you first said, James.
Roger. Awesome. Like HR 101 there. So I took a lot of notes right there in that little segment. And I hope folks did too, because that there's obviously more to it. And we could talk a whole day about all the stuff Roger just talked about to get into, but HR 101 stuff there. I know we both recently interviewed Jason Brooks. So what you were talking about made me think of him. No, let me do it first. No. Anyway, so every leader needs followers. He's got a great couple chapters here on onboarding, some staff training stuff, but this is a quick pickup. I don't know, 15, $20, Amazon, you 1,000,000% can't go wrong picking up Jason's book. Check out his podcast on my website or Rogers, but a lot of stuff there was good. The other notes I took there, I love the idea of getting scores and getting grades because as adults, we're not graded very often anymore. Like you are in school. Like I know you have school age kids as well. Like you get grades, like you get feedback, you get a report. And sometimes when you're an adult, you don't get feedback anymore. So doing that every 6 months is a great tip. And folks need to know where they are and redirected and repointed. So I appreciated that. I was also reading, I don't have it right here, but you may know Gary V from your travels or not. But anyway, I was reading some Gary V lately. Gary Vaynerchuk, longtime social media guy, but he talks a lot about leadership and management. And some of this came into play where you can hire slow, fire fast. People say different things, but he was really talking about that empathy of nurturing someone who might be struggling. Don't just fire them quickly. Have the meeting that you talked about. Redirect, give them a chance to perform. You don't want to just fire people. No one likes that. It's not enjoyable. Right. So give them that chance to succeed by redirecting them or finding another place in your organization. So that just made me think about that as well as a piece of business, because it's not easy to find people. So can you redirect them? Can you re-energize them is a good tip. And I also liked the idea of scoring a behavior. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say you're the host, and you welcome somebody, and you could give that process a score 1 to 5, right? And let's just say you watch Sally do it, and you're like, wow, that was okay, but that was like a 3. Sally, what would a 5 look like if you welcome somebody? What would a 5 look like? It's just, oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. I would probably do this, and this, and this. And if your folks can do reps at a 5, your people are really going to feel a difference. And I can just speak from my experience as a dining out. I'm getting very few 5-level experiences when I'm going out. So
I know.
talk about that mentality. It'll reset your people going, yeah, I probably did a 2 there. I'm probably just kicking through and getting, doing 3s. Everybody can ramp it up. So just some layer on stuff there, Rod. You want to touch anything else before I go to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, I love that phrase, words, competitive advantage. What you just said is a huge competitive advantage because you eat out a lot, and
Yeah.
we do as well, and especially when we travel. But you can always tell, and our audience, when you're outside of your restaurant, you have a critical eye. What's happening behind the scenes, but you can just tell, and your guests can tell whether they've ever been in the restaurant business or not. If they like to eat out, you walk into a restaurant and you could tell if it's running on 4 cylinders or 8 cylinders. You can tell if the team are trained well. You can tell if they're personable people that are there to up level the guest experience. And then you can clearly tell those restaurants that are just running around crazy, that controlled chaos thing where you're just not getting that great experience, and that they're dropping balls left and right. And it happens all the time in this business. And that's a mistake. So yeah, I love the 5, train everyone to be at that 5 level, and your guests will get the best experience possible. And
100%.
you know that your competition is not doing that down the street. So
Great stuff there from Roger Beaudoin of Restaurant Rockstars. This was part of our in-depth webinar called The Top 8 Restaurant Mistakes and How to Fix Them. For the full webinar, plus access to over 1,000 other hospitality tips, tricks, and tools, go to runningrestaurants.com/subscribe. That's runningrestaurants.com/subscribe.